Have you ever wondered if true healing goes beyond what modern medicine can explain? If the pills, the injections, the surgeries we often depend on are only part of the story, and behind them lies something far deeper, something invisible, yet undeniably powerful. Stay with me until the end, because what you're about to discover might surprise you. We live in a time unlike any other, where the line that once separated science from spirituality, the laboratory from the chapel, the doctor's prescription from the whispered prayer, is slowly disappearing. It is as if the veil between two worlds, the physical and the spiritual, is tearing, revealing a truth that has always been there, that both belong to the same divine law. But before we begin, please hit the like button and let me know where in the world you're watching from today. It's always fascinating seeing who's joining us from around the world. Your presence here, your thoughts and reflections, are part of this living conversation about health, faith, and the mystery of life itself. Think about this for a moment. The discovery of penicillin and the family of sulfa drugs is celebrated as one of the greatest achievements of modern medicine. During the darkest days of World War II, when infections claimed countless lives, this new scientific breakthrough reduced mortality rates drastically. For many, it was proof of human intellect, of progress, of science triumphing over chaos. And yet, could it also be a divine instrument? Could it be that antibiotics are not merely the fruit of laboratories and microscopes, but a channel of something higher, a manifestation of divine intelligence flowing through human discovery? Has this ever happened to you? Hearing about a medical miracle, a recovery so sudden and inexplicable that even doctors struggle to explain it? We often call it luck, chance, or coincidence. But what if these moments are glimpses of a deeper reality, reminders that true healing is never only physical, that behind every medical breakthrough, behind every restored body, there is a law greater than chemistry, greater than biology, a spiritual law that unites matter and spirit? Stay with me here, because this is where it becomes truly fascinating. When we look back at history, we see that human knowledge has always unfolded in layers, as if guided step by step. The invention of antibiotics was not an accident, nor a simple act of intellectual brilliance. It was, in many ways, part of a progressive revelation, a way for the divine to express itself through human channels, showing us that healing can manifest in the physical as much as in the spiritual. And yet, how often do we forget this? How often do we treat medicine as if it were an isolated power, detached from the deeper forces of life? The truth is that antibiotics, like prayer, like meditation, like every act of faith, are all threads in the same fabric of healing. They are not rivals, but partners. One addresses the body, the other addresses the mind and the soul. Together they create a synergy far more powerful than either could achieve alone. What you're about to discover in this journey is that healing is not confined to a hospital bed or a prescription slip. Healing is a law, eternal and divine, operating through every channel, whether that be a vial of penicillin, a heartfelt prayer, or the quiet conviction that life itself is stronger than any illness. So I invite you to keep watching, to let these ideas sink in, and to open yourself to the possibility that the future of medicine is not just in science alone, nor in faith alone, but in the unbreakable union of both, because in that union lies a truth that has the power to transform not just how we heal, but how we live. And in just a moment, we'll begin to unfold this vision step by step. If this resonates with you, stay connected by subscribing. There's so much more to uncover together. Think about the moments when medicine seems to do everything it can, and yet recovery still feels incomplete. A prescription can silence an infection, reduce pain, stabilize the body, but deep inside, there remains something unresolved. That something is often dismissed as chance or the randomness of healing. But in truth, it points us toward a hidden truth. Medicine acts on the physical structure, while consciousness opens the channel through which restoration becomes complete. Antibiotics can target bacteria, but they cannot dissolve fear, guilt, or despair. Prayer, on the other hand, realigns thought, reshapes mindset, and restores harmony where it was lost. One works from the outside in, the other from the inside out. When they meet, the impact is extraordinary. Behind the scenes of every medical advance lies a higher law, a divine order that orchestrates life itself. Doctors, nurses, and researchers may labor with brilliance, and patients may cooperate with determination, but healing at its core does not belong to human effort alone. It is life itself, God's life, unfolding through every cell, every breath, every heartbeat. Have you noticed how some patients recover faster, not only because of the treatment, but because of the hope, gratitude, or inner peace they carry? Science often calls it psychology or resilience, but it is more than that. It is consciousness cooperating with medicine, showing that healing is not just mechanical, but deeply spiritual. This is where transformation begins. The moment we stop seeing medicine and spirituality as opposites, and instead recognize them as partners in the same journey, everything changes. Healing stops being a fight against illness and becomes a process of alignment with the law of life. A simple mindset shift, believing that health is possible, trusting that divine intelligence is working through the remedy, can open doors that even the most advanced treatment alone cannot. The body responds not only to the chemical compounds it receives, but to the environment of thought in which those compounds are received. Gratitude strengthens the immune system. Peace calms the nervous system. Trust accelerates recovery. This is the hidden power behind countless cases that seem miraculous, yet follow an exact spiritual law. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic. Imagine the physician prescribing medicine, and the patient taking it with awareness that beyond molecules and formulas, there is a greater presence working through both. Imagine a surgery guided not only by the skill of hands but also by an unseen intelligence that restores harmony at levels no scalpel could ever touch. Healing in this light is not about man trying to persuade God, nor about science replacing faith. It is about God's law of life expressing itself through every instrument available, through antibiotics, through prayer, through the very energy of thought. The most profound revelations often come when we realize that what we call recovery is not man's accomplishment, but divine action shining through matter. It is not the doctor who heals, nor the patient who forces his body to respond, but the life of God that never stops working. Medicine and consciousness, matter and spirit, are not rivals but reflections of the same law. They are partners in the same journey toward wholeness. And if this resonates with you, write in the comments, "This makes sense to me." Healing unfolds like a living dialogue between body, mind, and spirit. And within that dialogue, silence becomes the first and often most overlooked step. Silence is not the absence of sound but the opening of space. It is the decision to pause the restless flow of thoughts and create room for something higher to act. In silence, the patient becomes receptive, aligning with the hidden truth that life itself is already working toward balance. It is behind the scenes, in those still moments where the noise of fear fades, that the deepest transformation begins to take root. From silence, the journey naturally flows into affirmation. Affirmation is the conscious choice to replace destructive thought patterns with words that carry life and authority. It is more than repeating phrases. It is planting seeds of truth within the soil of consciousness. A person who says to themselves, "I am aligned with the law of life," or "healing is unfolding in me now," is not merely speaking wishful thinking, but activating a principle that strengthens the body and clears the mind. Affirmations reshape the internal atmosphere where medicine acts, giving it a fertile ground to work more effectively. Visualization then adds another layer of impact. When the mind sees health, when it paints images of strength, harmony, and vitality, it sends signals that resonate through the body. Science itself recognizes how the nervous system reacts to imagery, how the body responds to what the mind believes to be real. Visualizing light repairing tissues, or strength flowing through weak areas, is not just imagination, it is participation in the law of healing. This kind of inner picture carries energy, guiding cells and systems toward restoration. And finally, action closes the circle. Action is the outward expression of inner conviction, the step where decisions align with faith. It is when the patient not only believes but acts as someone already on the path of recovery, taking the medicine with gratitude, walking even when weak, choosing nourishing foods, practicing kindness toward oneself. All of these are actions that confirm and anchor the healing process. They transform treatment into a journey where the individual is not a passive receiver but an active participant in their restoration. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when prayer enters this process, medicine itself becomes something more. The pill, the injection, the therapy, whatever form it takes, ceases to be only a human tool and becomes a channel for divine will. Prayer does not compete with medicine. It elevates it. It transforms a simple formula into an instrument carrying greater force, aligning chemistry with spirit. What happens in this cooperation is not only physical repair, but a reorganization of life at its core. Behind the scenes, prayer works as an invisible architect, shaping the atmosphere in which medicine operates. Fear weakens the effect of treatment, but prayer dissolves fear. Doubt delays recovery, but prayer strengthens trust. The result is not abstract. It has measurable impact, often seen in faster recoveries, deeper peace, and an energy that goes beyond the explanation of science alone. Medicine empowered by prayer becomes more than matter acting on matter. It becomes matter infused with meaning, carrying the vibrations of divine intelligence. This journey shows us that every step, silence, affirmation, visualization, and action, reaches its fullest power when touched by prayer. It is as if prayer weaves them together, turning them into a single harmonious process guided by a higher hand. Healing, then, is not fragmented but whole, not accidental but intentional, not man-made but divine in origin. And if this resonates with you, put down in the comments, "I'm also on this path." When we look at history with attentive eyes, it becomes clear that the unfolding of science is not a random sequence of discoveries, but part of a progressive revelation that unites what was once considered separate. The rise of antibiotics, for example, is often told as a purely medical triumph, the result of human intelligence finally bending nature to its will. But if you pause and look behind the scenes, the impact of that moment goes far beyond laboratories and microscopes. It was as if a hidden truth that had always existed finally became visible to humanity, a truth showing that divine intelligence chooses precise moments to release its light through science. Antibiotics were not created out of nothing. They were revealed at a time when the world, bleeding from the wounds of war, needed a tangible sign that life is still stronger than destruction. This journey shows us that science and spirit are not opposites, but two lenses that help us perceive the same reality. What researchers call discovery, many mystics would call revelation. And perhaps both are right. Penicillin did not suddenly start existing the day Fleming noticed its effect. It had always been there, carrying within it a divine design, waiting for the right mindset, the right openness, the right decision in human consciousness to receive it. In this sense, antibiotics are not only a medical tool, they are part of a larger spiritual law that reveals itself gradually, piece by piece, as humanity becomes ready to handle such power. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because if divine revelation is progressive, it means that what we already know is only the surface of what is yet to come. And here lies a truth that may feel unsettling. Disease itself is not born in the body, but in the field of thought. Every symptom, every imbalance, is an effect, never the root cause. Bacteria and viruses may appear to be the enemy, but they are only messengers of a deeper disharmony. They respond to the state of the inner world, reflecting patterns of fear, resentment, or disconnection from the law of life. Subscribe now so you don't miss the next insight that could completely shift your perspective. This perspective changes everything. Instead of seeing illness as an accident or an external invasion, it invites us to see it as a revelation of what is happening in the hidden spaces of the mind. Just as shadows reveal the position of light, disease reveals where thought has strayed from harmony. It is not about blame, but about awareness. When someone recognizes that causes are mental, they step into a space of transformation, because thoughts can be changed. A shift in mindset, a new decision, the cultivation of peace and gratitude. These are not abstract ideas but real forces that impact the body as profoundly as any drug. The body, after all, is the stage where consciousness expresses itself. If thought is filled with confusion, the body mirrors confusion. If the inner dialogue is poisoned with despair, the body reacts with weakness. But when thought aligns with truth, when it opens to revelation, the body becomes strong again, and healing is no longer only about treating matter, but about renewing the entire journey of the self. This hidden truth explains why many people who receive the same medical treatment have different outcomes. The medicine is the same, but the consciousness through which it passes is unique. Prayer, faith, peace of mind. These are not extras. They are central forces shaping the result. Modern science is only beginning to scratch the surface of this mystery, studying the impact of stress, mindset, and emotions on the immune system. But spirituality has always affirmed this. Healing begins in thought, because thought is the origin of all form. And if this perspective makes sense to you, write in the comments. Healing starts in the mind. When you really stop to reflect, it becomes clear that medicine and prayer are not operating on the same battlefield. Medicine steps in where the symptoms already exist, where the body cries out through pain, fever, or imbalance. It works on the visible layer, the effect that has already manifested. But prayer goes deeper. It reaches into the hidden root, where the first spark of illness is formed. That root is not in the bloodstream, nor in the tissues, but in the field of consciousness. Without transformation there, no true healing can last, because the cause remains untouched. This is why some people move from one treatment to another, suppressing what the body presents but never addressing the silent architecture of thought that continues to generate disorder. To heal from the root is to accept that disease is not merely a mechanical accident, but a reflection of what takes place in the unseen realm of the mind. Every negative cycle of thought, every unresolved conflict, every unbalanced emotion leaves an imprint that sooner or later finds expression in the physical world. This is not about blame, but about revelation. The body becomes a messenger, and its symptoms are messages asking for alignment. In that sense, prayer is not simply a ritual of words, but an instrument that shifts mindset, rewrites inner dialogues, and establishes new decisions that dissolve the very conditions that allowed illness to take form. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when you look at bacteria through this lens, you realize they are not enemies at all, but signals. Just as smoke points to the existence of fire, bacteria indicate that there is a deeper disharmony burning within thought. To fight them blindly is like opening windows to push out smoke without ever extinguishing the flames. You may get temporary relief, but the fire remains, waiting for another chance to break through. When the cause in consciousness is corrected, however, bacteria lose their stage. The soil where they thrived no longer supports them, and the body returns to balance naturally. Think of how powerful this hidden truth is. The very thing we often fear, the presence of germs, may actually be pointing us toward the transformation we need most. Instead of being paralyzed by fear of contagion, the invitation is to listen, to understand what the body is trying to reveal about the state of the inner world. Behind the scenes of every infection lies not only a biological explanation, but a spiritual one, an opportunity to realign thought with the law of harmony. This perspective doesn't dismiss the value of medicine. On the contrary, it makes medicine even more purposeful, because it is no longer just fighting surface-level effects, but working in cooperation with a consciousness that has decided to change at the core. Imagine the impact of this union. Medicine supporting the body, while prayer rewrites the cause in the mind. Healing, then, is not temporary, but complete. It is no longer a cycle of symptoms suppressed and returning, but a journey of renewal where body and spirit reflect the same truth. When this realization sinks in, health stops being a constant struggle and becomes a process of discovery. Each imbalance becomes a doorway to revelations about the self, each symptom an opportunity to recognize what has been hidden behind thought. Illness, then, is not only a problem to solve, but a message guiding us back toward harmony. And if this vision resonates with you, write in the comments, "I see the message." There was once a young patient whose body was collapsing under the weight of septicemia. The infection spread fast, and the doctors around him acted with precision, applying the best of modern medicine: penicillin, fluids, constant monitoring. Yet, something extraordinary happened in that hospital room, something that cannot be measured by clinical charts alone. Alongside the treatment, a current of prayer was sustained, not as desperate words thrown into the air, but as a structured spiritual practice, a four-phase immersion into silence, affirmation, visualization, and action. It was not merely about hoping for recovery, it was about aligning thought with a higher law that transcends biology itself. And the transformation was undeniable. While septicemia often takes weeks to subside, his body responded with astonishing speed. Within days, stability returned, and recovery unfolded with a strength that surprised even the most seasoned physicians. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because what truly shifted in that scenario was not only the patient's condition, but his consciousness. At first he had been consumed by fear of the diagnosis, fear of the outcome, fear of losing control over his own journey. That fear, subtle as it may seem, was feeding the soil in which disease had taken root. But when prayer was introduced, something behind the scenes began to change. It wasn't magic, nor a denial of science. It was the gentle yet powerful redirection of thought, from despair to trust, from chaos to order, from fear to faith. This mental realignment became the hidden truth behind the healing process, the spark that allowed medicine to operate with far greater impact. Join the journey by subscribing. Each step brings new revelations waiting to be discovered. Penicillin did its work, yes, but it was not the ultimate cause of recovery. The true source was the invisible shift, the decision within consciousness to open itself to divine law instead of being imprisoned by fear. And this is where healing reveals its dual nature: medicine as the instrument, consciousness as the conductor. Without the shift in mindset, the drug might have suppressed symptoms temporarily, but with the inner transformation, the body became receptive to wholeness, accelerating the journey toward complete restoration. This shows us that healing is not a passive event where the patient waits for doctors or medicine to do everything. It is an active participation in life's own law. Every thought of trust strengthens the immune system. Every decision to let go of fear clears the space for vitality. Every inner revelation aligns the body with the order of creation. When viewed this way, prayer is not something external to the process, but the very atmosphere in which medicine finds its highest power. And think about the impact this has on the way we live day by day. If fear fuels weakness and trust fuels life, then every small moment of worry or resentment we allow to dominate thought is not harmless. It is planting seeds that can later manifest in the body. On the other hand, every conscious choice for gratitude, peace, and trust plants seeds of resilience and healing. The hospital room is just the stage where these hidden dynamics become visible, but they are present in our ordinary routines as well, shaping the outcomes of health, relationships, and the journey of the spirit itself. When we understand that the true foundation of healing lies not in external substances, but in the inner atmosphere of thought, we are no longer powerless. We step into the role of co-creators with divine law, harmonizing medicine and spirit in a way that transcends the limits of either alone. And if this resonates with you, write in the comments, "Fear no longer rules me." Illness, in its deepest essence, is not simply a biological event written in the body, but a belief written in consciousness. Think about it for a moment. How many times has fear itself made your body react, even when no real danger was present? A sudden fright that makes your heart race, an anxious thought that turns your stomach, a prolonged worry that weighs on your chest. These are not external threats. They are reflections of an inner conviction that something outside us has the power to harm. Disease follows the same pattern. It exists and persists as long as the belief in vulnerability is allowed to dominate the mind. The body, being a faithful mirror of thought, only obeys the script it is given. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic. When we begin to dissolve the belief in harm, something extraordinary happens. The body starts to realign with its original blueprint of health. Healing, then, is not about fighting against symptoms, but about removing the hidden truth that sustains them. The idea that we are separate from the law of life, exposed, fragile, and defenseless. In reality, the moment we stop giving power to fear and begin to trust in divine order, the signals of illness lose their foundation. What looked like an immovable obstacle is revealed as a shadow projected by thought, and shadows cannot stand once light enters. This is where the relationship between medicine and prayer becomes so fascinating. The mistake is not in turning to antibiotics or medical care. The mistake lies in approaching them with a mindset filled with fear, as if they were our only lifeline against forces greater than us. When medicine is embraced with spiritual understanding, it stops being a mere chemical reaction and becomes a channel for divine intelligence to act through the physical. In this synergy, antibiotics are no longer seen as fighting against disease in isolation, but as part of a much larger orchestration where body, mind, and spirit cooperate under one law. The impact of this shift is profound. Patients who take medication with fear often prolong their suffering, trapped in the belief that healing depends entirely on external substances. But those who unite medicine with faith, decisions with trust, and prayer with action discover that the effect of treatment multiplies. The drug no longer carries the weight of despair, but is infused with confidence, and this confidence changes everything. Behind the scenes of biology, faith is rewriting the outcome, unlocking a transformation that medicine alone could never achieve. It's as if the body responds not only to molecules, but also to mindset. The way we think while receiving care either opens the doors of recovery or places invisible locks upon them. That is why countless stories exist where two patients receive the same treatment, but only one experiences rapid restoration. The difference is not just physiology, it is consciousness. One accepts medicine as an instrument of divine will, while the other clings to it as the last hope in a hostile universe. The first aligns with life, the second remains chained to fear. And so, when we speak of healing, we must stop separating what was never meant to be divided. Medicine and prayer are not opposing forces but complementary expressions of the same law. Science without spirit becomes mechanical and limited. Spirit without science becomes abstract and distant. Together, they awaken the hidden potential of the human being to experience health not as an accident, but as a natural state of alignment with divine truth. If this resonates with you, write in the comments, "Health begins in belief." Grace is often imagined as something distant, ethereal, untouchable, a force that moves only in the realm of the invisible. Yet the hidden truth is that grace manifests through matter as well. When we look at the existence of antibiotics, vaccines, or even the simple ability of the body to clot blood after a wound, we are witnessing grace woven into the very fabric of creation. These are not accidents of science. They are revelations of divine intelligence expressed through physical form. It is as if matter itself carries the signature of spirit, whispering that the divine law of life is not bound to the unseen, but flows through the visible too. The journey of healing, then, is not about choosing between faith or medicine, but about recognizing that both emerge from the same source of grace. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because if grace can be recognized in medicine, then our own thoughts and emotions are equally important instruments of healing. Science today shows what spirituality has long affirmed. Correct thought shapes the body's ability to defend itself. Hope, peace, and gratitude are not just uplifting ideas. They directly strengthen the immune system, fortifying the body against disease. On the other hand, fear, resentment, and hopelessness act like slow poisons, weakening defenses and opening the door for illness to take hold. This is not mystical speculation. It is a powerful connection between mindset and biology. Behind the scenes of every recovery story, there is always a shift in consciousness that tilts the balance toward life. Think about it. Two people can be exposed to the same environment, the same pathogens, and the same risks, yet one remains well while the other falls ill. The difference often lies not in external conditions, but in the inner state one carries within a reservoir of faith, optimism, and resilience, while the other is consumed by worry, doubt, and bitterness. This hidden truth explains why prayer and gratitude are far more than comforting rituals. They are active forces that reorganize the body from within. They ignite a transformation where cells, immunity, and even hormones realign with the divine order of health. This journey into the relationship between thought and immunity shows us that healing is not only a matter of what we take into the body but also of what we hold in the mind. Every decision to release anger, to forgive, to cultivate gratitude becomes medicine in itself, reinforcing the body as surely as any antibiotic. It is a behind-the-scenes process, often invisible to the eye, but with an impact greater than we imagine. The simple act of replacing fear with trust is not just a psychological comfort. It rewrites the biology of survival into the biology of thriving. And when grace flows, through both matter and thought, the effect is multiplied. Medicine infused with prayer, antibiotics taken with gratitude, or treatments accepted with faith cease to be mere interventions. They become channels of divine order. This is why true healing feels like a synergy, not a battle. It is not man versus disease, or science versus faith, but the revelation that all these elements are facets of the same law of life. What looks like a pill on the outside is, in truth, an expression of grace. What feels like a thought of hope is, in reality, a direct alignment with the creative power of God. Make sure you're subscribed, so every new truth finds its way straight to you. Healing, then, is not only a process but a recognition, a moment when we awaken to the fact that nothing in creation is separate from the law of life. Antibiotics, prayer, gratitude, and the immune system are all instruments in the same divine symphony. The harmony emerges when we stop fragmenting them and begin to see the wholeness they reveal. If this resonates with you, write in the comments. Grace flows through everything. When we take a phrase like, "The divine life in me dissolves every cause of disease," and repeat it with intention, something extraordinary begins to unfold. Words become more than sounds. They act as keys that unlock hidden layers of consciousness. Each repetition reshapes the inner landscape, reorganizing thought patterns that once carried fear or doubt and replacing them with alignment to a higher truth. It's not about magic formulas or superstition. It's about training the mind to accept a new reality where life, not illness, is the dominant force. This affirmation is not a denial of the body's condition, but a reorientation of the inner compass, a decision to let divine order speak louder than the chaos of symptoms. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because the real transformation happens when we realize that true healing is always the healing of thought. A body can receive medicine, undergo surgery, or take antibiotics, but if the consciousness remains trapped in fear, resentment, or hopelessness, the results are temporary at best. Healing that lasts requires a deeper reprogramming of the inner self. It's like fixing a crack on the surface of a wall without repairing the foundation beneath. Sooner or later, the damage reappears. The hidden truth is that thoughts are not passive. They carry energy that shapes the cells, the immune system, and even the chemistry of the brain. When a thought changes, the body follows, and this is why a spiritual dimension completes what medicine begins. Behind the scenes of every lasting recovery lies a shift in mindset. A person may walk out of a hospital healed physically, but remain chained by fear of relapse. Another may carry a diagnosis, yet radiate peace and resilience that defies every prognosis. What makes the difference is not always the treatment, but the consciousness in which it is received. This is where faith, affirmation, and prayer weave themselves into the very fabric of healing. They do not replace medicine, but they empower it, transforming every pill, every injection, every therapy into a channel of divine life. The impact of this realization is profound, because it reframes illness not as an enemy, but as a messenger. Symptoms become signals urging us to reorganize thought, to replace destructive beliefs with ones that align with life itself. Fear says, "You are fragile." The divine affirmation replies, "You are whole." Resentment whispers, "You are wounded." The inner truth answers, "You are healed." Each time the mind chooses the second voice, the body responds, adjusting its systems to reflect harmony rather than discord. And this journey is not abstract, it is practical. The decisions we make daily, from the words we speak to the emotions we feed, either strengthen or weaken the inner alignment, hopeful affirmations, gratitude, and trust in divine law are not merely positive thinking, they are mental realignments that recalibrate the body as surely as any medical intervention. When medicine touches the physical and affirmation touches the mental, the two merge into a holistic force where healing is no longer a fragmentary process, but a complete transformation. Every revelation of this kind reminds us that the greatest work of restoration begins in silence, in thought, in the unseen places of consciousness, where we decide who we are and what we will embody. Medicine may correct the effect, but it is thought that dissolves the cause. That is why healing of the body is inseparable from healing of the mind, and when both cooperate, grace has room to flow without obstruction. If this aligns with what you feel inside, write in the comments. Healing begins in thought. When we truly pause to reflect, the body reveals itself as a mirror of thought, faithfully echoing the patterns we hold within. Every cell becomes like a messenger, carrying the imprint of our inner climate, translating emotions and beliefs into physical expression. If the mind is agitated, the body trembles. If the heart is heavy, the body weakens. And when the spirit aligns with truth, the body responds with balance and vitality. Illness, then, is not a random invader, but the visible reflection of a hidden misalignment in thought. It is not the body that originates disease, but the mind that distorts the flow of life, projecting that distortion onto the physical. This understanding changes everything because it shifts the conversation from "how do I fix my body?" to "what belief within me needs to be transformed?" Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because within this mirror lies the secret of one of the most extraordinary systems of human life, the immune system. Often seen only through the lens of biology, it is in truth the guardian of balance, a living testimony of how spirit and matter intertwine. White blood cells do more than patrol for infections. They act as symbols of a deeper intelligence that sustains harmony. Their role is not merely mechanical, but profoundly spiritual, representing the invisible order that governs the body. Behind the scenes of every immune response is a dialogue between thought and matter, between belief and biology. Hope strengthens the army, while fear disperses it. Gratitude sharpens its intelligence, while resentment dulls its vision. The hidden truth here is that immunity is not only about what we eat, drink, or breathe. It is also about the mindset we cultivate. A consciousness rooted in peace creates resilience that no toxin can easily penetrate. A mind consumed by anxiety leaves the gates open for imbalance to take hold. The impact of this realization is immense because it means that every choice of thought is already a decision about health. Choosing to nurture forgiveness is as vital as choosing nourishing food. Deciding to replace fear with trust is as protective as any supplement. This is not poetic exaggeration. It is the law of correspondence between inner and outer life. The journey of healing becomes, then, a journey of remembering. The immune system is not separate from our consciousness. It is its reflection, its extension in flesh and blood. By realigning the mind, we empower the guardian within to act with greater clarity. The patient who embraces peace and affirms divine order is not passively waiting for medicine to work. They are actively summoning their inner guardian to rise with strength. And this is where the synergy of science and spirit becomes undeniable. Medicine supports the body, while the spirit fuels the intelligence that directs healing. This understanding leads us to recognize that health is not the absence of disease, but the presence of harmony. When thought and spirit converge in truth, the immune system becomes more than a biological defense. It becomes the embodiment of divine protection working through us. And, in this unfolding revelation, one begins to see that every act of faith, every moment of gratitude, every affirmation of divine life is itself a medicine, as real and potent as anything science can offer. If these words resonate with you, write in the comments, "My guardian is within." When we begin to understand that every word carries a vibration, the simple act of repeating "I am health" ceases to be just a phrase and becomes a living seed planted in the soil of the subconscious. Spoken daily with sincerity and conviction, it slowly reprograms the mind, reshaping the inner landscape where fear and limitation once dictated the rhythm of thought. This affirmation is not about denying the body's condition, but about reminding it of its divine blueprint, the original pattern of wholeness that exists beyond any distortion. It is like tuning an instrument that has gone out of harmony. The strings are not destroyed. They are simply realigned to produce the pure sound they were designed for. And in this process, the body begins to respond as a faithful echo of the new melody being played within. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because the power of affirmation is not abstract. It reveals itself in real, concrete experiences. One striking example is the story of a woman facing surgery, whose recovery surpassed all medical expectations. Instead of filling her days with worry or conversations of doubt, she chose silence as her companion. In that sacred quiet, she affirmed inner order again and again, not with desperate effort, but with calm certainty, as though she were reminding herself of a truth already established. What happened next seemed almost like a hidden miracle working behind the scenes. Her wounds closed more quickly, her energy returned with unusual speed, and her doctors, though trained in science, could not fully explain the transformation they were witnessing. The hidden truth here is that silence itself is not empty. It is a container for creation. In the absence of noise, affirmation gains weight, concentration deepens, and the voice of the inner self is heard with clarity. By withdrawing from the chaos of external influences, she was able to align thought with spirit, and the result was more than physical recovery. It was a revelation of how mindset can alter matter. This does not mean she rejected medical help, but rather that she infused every stage of the process with an attitude that medicine alone could not provide. The impact of this union was undeniable. The physical responded to the spiritual, and the healing became a testimony of the synergy between body and consciousness. If these words are opening something inside you, subscribe and keep walking this path with me. This journey teaches us that transformation is never the result of chance, but of decisions made in the secret chamber of the mind. Each time we choose affirmation over complaint, silence over agitation, trust over fear, we shift the balance of forces acting upon us. Healing ceases to be a passive hope and becomes an active participation in the laws of life. It is not about fighting illness, but about affirming life so strongly that illness has no ground to stand on. And when this awareness takes root, we realize that health is not something fragile that we try to protect from threats, but a living current flowing through us, ready to manifest whenever we allow it. If you feel this truth stirring within you, write in the comments, "Silence heals me." When we begin to see disease not as an external enemy, but as consciousness forgetting its own divine order, a hidden truth comes to light. The body is not acting against us. It is simply reflecting the confusion of thought. Organs do not rebel by themselves. They respond faithfully and silently to the vibrations of fear, resentment, or despair that echo through the corridors of the mind. And yet, just as fear can distort, truth can restore. When a person turns inward and remembers the harmony that has always existed at the core of their being, the body reorganizes itself, almost as if the cells were musicians tuning their instruments back to a forgotten symphony. It is not magic, it is alignment. The law of correspondence tells us that the inner world and the outer world are never separate. What manifests in the body is simply a translation of what has long been whispered in thought. To understand this is to uncover the behind-the-scenes mechanism of both health and illness. Have you ever noticed how periods of deep stress often coincide with sudden physical discomforts, or how moments of inner peace bring an inexplicable vitality that no supplement could reproduce? This is not coincidence. It is cause and effect unfolding in perfect rhythm. The body is a canvas, and consciousness is the brush. The colors it chooses, whether joy, gratitude, trust, or fear, inevitably appear on that canvas. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because it reshapes the way we look at healing. Instead of asking only what treatment to take, the more transformative question becomes, What thought am I nurturing? The answer to that question determines far more than the dosage of a medicine. It sets the tone for how the body will receive it, integrate it, and respond. When truth is remembered, truth that we are not fragile beings at the mercy of disorder but expressions of a greater life, healing accelerates. The impact of this shift is profound. Antibiotics or therapies, when combined with a consciousness anchored in peace, do not merely suppress symptoms, they help dissolve the very soil where disorder tried to grow. The journey of healing, then, is not just physical, but mental, emotional, and spiritual. Behind every recovery there is an invisible decision, a moment when the individual either reaffirms fear or chooses to affirm life. That choice may happen quietly, behind closed doors, in a whispered prayer, or even in the silent recognition that I am more than this illness. Such decisions ripple outward, transforming the immune system, the organs, the very energy that animates the body. What doctors see as a sudden improvement, what scientists may label spontaneous remission, is often the fruit of this inner alignment taking place. This perspective does not deny medicine, it ennobles it. It shows us that healing is a partnership between the tools of science and the power of thought. One works on the surface, the other at the roots, and when both act together, what results is not temporary relief but lasting transformation. The correspondence between inner and outer is not a theory. It is a law operating quietly in every heartbeat, every breath, every cell. And once we grasp this law, we are no longer passive observers of our health, but conscious participants in its unfolding. If these words resonate with you, share in the comments. I choose inner order. When we realize that no medicine acts in isolation, a hidden dimension of healing reveals itself. Every pill, every injection, every carefully measured dose is not simply absorbed by the body. It is received, interpreted, and filtered through the consciousness of the one who takes it. A treatment given with doubt, fear, or hopelessness may find resistance in the very system meant to absorb it, while the same treatment embraced with trust, gratitude, and the affirmation of divine order can manifest results that seem almost miraculous. This is not to diminish the science of medicine, but to expose what lies behind the scenes, the mindset that determines whether a remedy acts fully or only partially. The physician may prescribe, but it is the inner agreement of the patient that completes the circuit of healing. Consider the case of the man whose ulcers had resisted every conventional treatment. Months of therapies, restrictive diets, and endless discomfort left him weary, caught in the mindset that nothing would work. Yet when he was guided to shift his focus, not to the disease but to the divine action already present within him, something profound happened. He began to affirm daily, with quiet conviction, that life itself was acting in him, dissolving every false condition. The ulcers, which had defied medicine, began to heal at an astonishing pace. Was it the affirmation alone? Was it the medication finally working? The truth is that it was both, joined together through the bridge of consciousness. The medicine provided the material means, but the thought aligned it with a higher order, allowing it to act without obstruction. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic because this synergy between medicine and thought is not just about physical symptoms. It is about the entire journey of transformation. Every decision we make about health, from the foods we eat to the treatments we accept, carries with it an invisible partner: belief. Belief is the soil in which the seed of any therapy is planted. A healthy mindset nourishes the roots of recovery, while fear and doubt dry them out before they can grow. This is why two people may take the same drug for the same illness, yet one recovers swiftly, while the other lingers in struggle. Behind the clinical explanation lies the hidden truth of consciousness shaping outcomes. What this teaches us is that healing is never a passive experience. To rely only on external remedies without attending to the inner state is like trying to build a house on sand. But when the inner foundation is firm, when thoughts are directed toward harmony, peace, and divine order, every external tool becomes more effective. Science and spirit cease to be opposites. They become allies, each amplifying the other. This union transforms the very definition of health, revealing it not as the absence of symptoms, but as the active presence of balance in mind, body, and soul. If you are following this journey closely, share in the comments the phrase, "I align belief with healing." Every thought we allow to linger in the mind sets into motion an entire chain of events, silently shaping the way our body functions. It begins with the spark of an idea or a subtle belief, which quickly transforms into an emotion. That emotion, in turn, instructs the body to release specific chemicals, which then reach every cell, carrying either harmony or discord. Fear, for instance, is not just a passing state of mind. It becomes a physical substance coursing through the bloodstream, tightening muscles, weakening defenses, and disrupting balance. Gratitude, on the other hand, is more than a pleasant feeling. It is a force that alters the body's chemistry, releasing signals of peace, safety, and regeneration. In this hidden cycle of thought, emotion, chemistry, and cells lies the truth of how illness and healing unfold, not as separate realities, but as reflections of the mindset we cultivate daily. When we start to see emotions as chemical messengers, the invisible becomes tangible. Resentment is not just a memory replayed in the mind, it is cortisol and adrenaline saturating the system. Likewise, hope is not an abstract comfort, it is serotonin and endorphins, literally programming cells to repair, grow, and flourish. What science observes in laboratories as neurotransmitters and immune responses are the same realities that ancient teachings described as energy, spirit, and alignment. The language differs, but the principle is the same. Consciousness creates impact at the most intimate level of life. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because the relationship between medicine and prayer reveals one of the most powerful transformations of all. Imagine penicillin, the revolutionary discovery that turned the tide of infections during times of war. On its own, it acts through biology, destroying harmful bacteria and saving countless lives. But what if we understood it not only as a medical breakthrough, but also as a divine channel, a physical instrument carrying grace into matter? In this light, antibiotics and drugs are not merely human achievements, they are partners in a greater design, instruments of a hidden truth that science alone cannot fully explain. True prayer, then, is not about pleading for miracles, but about aligning thought with the order that already exists. It is not opposed to science. It is its silent counterpart, elevating medicine to its fullest potential. A patient who receives treatment while holding a prayerful mindset, affirming life and harmony, engages in a partnership where spirit and matter meet. The drug addresses the body, while prayer unlocks the consciousness that allows the body to accept and amplify the cure. Neither is diminished. Both are enhanced. Together they illustrate that healing is not the triumph of one path over another, but the fusion of the visible and the invisible, the material and the spiritual, the scientific and the sacred. If this resonates with you, write in the comments the phrase, "My thoughts create chemistry." Every thought we allow to linger in the mind sets into motion an entire chain of events, silently shaping the way our body functions. It begins with the spark of an idea or a subtle belief, which quickly transforms into an emotion. That emotion, in turn, instructs the body to release specific chemicals, which then reach every cell, carrying either harmony or discord. Fear, for instance, is not just a passing state of mind. It becomes a physical substance coursing through the bloodstream, tightening muscles, weakening defenses, and disrupting balance. Gratitude, on the other hand, is more than a pleasant feeling. It is a force that alters the body's chemistry, releasing signals of peace, safety, and regeneration. In this hidden cycle of thought, emotion, chemistry, and cells lies the truth of how illness and healing unfold, not as separate realities, but as reflections of the mindset we cultivate daily. When we start to see emotions as chemical messengers, the invisible becomes tangible. Resentment is not just a memory replayed in the mind. It is cortisol and adrenaline saturating the system. Likewise, hope is not an abstract comfort. It is serotonin and endorphins, literally programming cells to repair, grow, and flourish. What science observes in laboratories as neurotransmitters and immune responses are the same realities that ancient teachings described as energy, spirit, and alignment. The language differs, but the principle is the same. Consciousness creates impact at the most intimate level of life. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because the relationship between medicine and prayer reveals one of the most powerful transformations of all. Imagine penicillin, the revolutionary discovery that turned the tide of infections during times of war. On its own, it acts through biology, destroying harmful bacteria and saving countless lives. But what if we understood it not only as a medical breakthrough, but also as a divine channel, a physical instrument carrying grace into matter? In this light, antibiotics and drugs are not merely human achievements. They are partners in a greater design, instruments of a hidden truth that science alone cannot fully explain. True prayer, then, is not about pleading for miracles, but about aligning thought with the order that already exists. It is not opposed to science. It is its silent counterpart, elevating medicine to its fullest potential. A patient who receives treatment while holding a prayerful mindset, affirming life and harmony, engages in a partnership where spirit and matter meet. The drug addresses the body, while prayer unlocks the consciousness that allows the body to accept and amplify the cure. Neither is diminished. Both are enhanced. Together they illustrate that healing is not the triumph of one path over another, but the fusion of the visible and the invisible, the material and the spiritual, the scientific and the sacred. If this resonates with you, write in the comments the phrase, "My thoughts create chemistry." Prayer, when seen only as words whispered into the silence, seems fragile, almost powerless against the weight of sickness. Yet when it unfolds in its true form, as a disciplined movement of consciousness, it reveals a structure as precise as any scientific formula. It begins with recognition, acknowledging a greater intelligence, a divine order that sustains life. In this moment, the mind steps out of isolation and aligns with something larger than itself. The second phase follows as a quiet but firm denial, not of the body's signals, but of the idea that disease holds ultimate authority. This denial is not ignorance but liberation, a refusal to let fear dictate reality. Then comes affirmation, the active declaration that health, life, and harmony are present now, not distant goals but immediate truths. Finally, gratitude seals the cycle, a state of being that magnifies healing because it tells the body, "It is done." These four movements are not superstition. They are mindset practices that reprogram both thought and physiology, creating a hidden bridge where prayer and medicine walk side by side. Consider the case of pneumonia, a condition once feared because it claimed lives with ruthless certainty. A woman, weakened and surrounded by medical equipment, received antibiotics as science prescribed. But what happened behind the scenes shifted her recovery into something extraordinary. Her family gathered not in despair, but in conscious alignment, affirming divine healing with every breath they shared by her bedside. They recognized the higher law, denied the permanence of disease, affirmed her health, and gave thanks as if the cure were already complete. The doctors noted the speed of her improvement with surprise. Her body responded to the treatment faster than expected. Was it only the drug at work, or was it the merging of two currents, matter and spirit, science and prayer, that accelerated her transformation? This is the hidden truth often overlooked. Medicine does not operate in isolation, and prayer is not detached from biology. Both are channels, and when they meet in harmony, the impact on the human journey is profound. Healing ceases to be a battle of opposites and becomes a collaboration of forces. Recognition opens the mind, denial breaks chains of fear, affirmation directs energy, and gratitude expands the flow. Together they create an environment where the body listens, cells obey, and life responds. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because within these stories lies a revelation about the decisions we make every day. The choice to see illness as the final word, or as a temporary shadow awaiting light. Behind every recovery there is not only a medical prescription, but also a spiritual alignment that shifts the inner chemistry and invites order back into the system. If this spoke to you, leave in the comments the phrase, "Gratitude heals." Hospitals, often seen as places of pure science, also become silent stages where hidden truths reveal themselves. Beyond the machines, charts, and precise measurements, there are stories that cannot be explained solely by pharmacology. In documented cases, patients who engaged in gratitude and prayer while under medical treatment recovered faster than the protocols predicted. Surgeons noted incisions closing with unusual speed, infections dissolving in less time, and strength returning when weakness was expected to linger. Behind the scenes, something more was happening than the chemistry of drugs. Gratitude was altering the very terrain of the body, changing the emotional climate in which the cells worked, and prayer was reorganizing the consciousness that guided healing. Science recorded the results, but it could not always name the invisible force that made them possible. The pattern becomes clear. Where gratitude lives, vitality multiplies. This mindset is not wishful thinking but a direct reprogramming of the body's intelligence. Gratitude sends signals of safety, opening pathways for regeneration, while fear broadcasts the opposite, locking the system in survival mode. Here lies the great paradox of modern healing. While germs are fought with medicine, the hidden enemy is often not external at all, but internal. Fear. This subtle saboteur infiltrates the immune system, weakening its defenses before any microbe even arrives. A fearful thought can trigger cascades of destructive chemicals, corroding the natural order within, while a single shift toward peace or thankfulness can release the antidote. When we understand this, it transforms the way we look at illness. The body is not only a battlefield of microbes, but also a mirror of consciousness. The germs may be the actors, but fear is the director, setting the stage where the drama unfolds. To change the script, one must change the inner narrative. This is not about denying the reality of disease, but about reclaiming the authority of thought that either accelerates or delays recovery. Medicine plays its essential role, but its power is magnified or diminished by the emotional soil in which it is planted. Now I want to go even deeper into this topic, because fear is not only an emotion, it is a decision, often unconscious, that shapes destiny. Understanding its impact means discovering the hidden truth about why some heal and others struggle, why some rise again with strength while others remain trapped in cycles of illness. Fear disguises itself as caution, but behind the scenes it robs the body of energy, while gratitude and faith quietly restore the blueprint of health. If this resonates with you, leave in the comments the phrase, "I choose gratitude over fear." When fear tightens its grip, the mind becomes restless, the body contracts, and life itself seems to lose its natural rhythm. Yet the antidote is closer than most imagine. It is not found in resistance, but in surrender, in the quiet decision to turn inward and contemplate the presence of the Christ within. This silent meditation is more than a practice of calm. It is a doorway into a higher order that realigns the entire being. In that stillness, fear dissolves like mist before the sun, replaced by a profound peace that carries with it the blueprint of health. What medicine often tries to repair from the outside, this inner contemplation restores from the very source. It is a transformation that begins in consciousness and radiates outward, touching every cell with the memory of harmony. As this inner silence deepens, a hidden truth emerges. The body mirrors the currents of thought just as faithfully as rivers mirror the shape of the land they cross. This is where the law of circulation reveals its wisdom. Blood is not only a physical element carrying oxygen and nutrients, it is the symbol of movement, of flow, of life circulating freely. When thoughts are generous, forgiving, and expansive, circulation reflects that openness. But when resentment, fear, or stagnation take hold, the flow is disrupted. Just as blocked rivers breed disease in their waters, stagnant emotions breed illness in the body. Behind the scenes of every imbalance lies a decision of thought that constricted the flow. Healing, therefore, is not only about restoring blood flow, but about restoring the circulation of love, peace, and spiritual energy. The impact of this understanding is immense. Imagine the mindset shift it creates when one realizes that to unblock the arteries of the body, one must also unblock the arteries of the soul. Gratitude, forgiveness, generosity. These are not abstract virtues but living medicines, regulating circulation and infusing vitality into every system. Every breath becomes an exchange with the divine, every heartbeat a reminder of this eternal circulation. This journey from fear to contemplation, from stagnation to flow, is not linear, but cyclical, like the pulse itself. It invites constant awareness, constant renewal, and the willingness to release what no longer serves, so that something greater may flow in its place. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because understanding circulation at this level transforms not only how we see health, but also how we see life itself. It reveals the hidden architecture of balance and the spiritual order that sustains all creation. If these words resonate with you, write in the comments, "I choose flow over stagnation." When one begins to practice decrees that affirm the flow of life, something remarkable happens. The body listens, not passively, but with an intelligence that transcends ordinary biology. A simple phrase like, "life flows in me," carries a vibration that the subconscious immediately translates into movement. It is as if the bloodstream hears the command, arteries respond with greater openness, and the very pulse quickens in harmony with that truth. These affirmations are not mechanical repetitions. They are acts of alignment, decisions of the inner self to step out of stagnation and back into the natural rhythm of the universe. Behind the words lies the hidden truth that life was never meant to be blocked, but to circulate endlessly, renewing and nourishing every part of existence. And yet, the power of these decrees does not stop at circulation. They reach deeper, into the very architecture of the body, the cells. Science recognizes that cells communicate, respond, and adapt to stimuli, but spiritual wisdom goes further, revealing that each cell is a listener, a receiver of thought, a participant in the dialogue of consciousness. When one speaks words of truth with conviction, the message is carried beyond the ears and into the tissues. The cells reorganize themselves around the pattern of that spoken word, as though receiving new instructions from the blueprint of divine order. Just as a symphony follows the conductor's baton, the body follows the cadence of the affirmations that are spoken with belief. Imagine the impact this has on recovery, resilience, and transformation. Instead of cells operating under the chemistry of fear or resentment, they begin to resonate with the chemistry of harmony. The spoken truth becomes a code, a kind of sacred language that calls them back into balance. This is why some people witness sudden shifts in health when they begin to speak to themselves not with despair, but with certainty, not with doubt, but with conviction. The tissue reorganizes, scars fade more quickly, wounds close, and strength returns where weakness once reigned. It is the word regenerating, rewriting, reawakening what was forgotten. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because once we understand that our words have the power to reorganize life at the cellular level, the journey of healing no longer seems like a distant miracle. It becomes a conscious choice available in every breath, in every thought, in every phrase we allow to shape us. If this spoke to you, write in the comments, "My cells respond to truth." When the subject of forgiveness enters the realm of healing, many underestimate its reach. Yet the body never lies. It records every hidden grudge, every unresolved anger, every silent resentment. The digestive system, in particular, becomes the stage where these buried emotions perform their drama. The gut tightens, acids rise, discomfort settles in, and disorders begin to appear. It is not a coincidence but a direct reflection of an inner state that refuses to release the weight of the past. Holding resentment is like swallowing poison in small doses, day after day, and expecting the body to remain unharmed. The hidden truth is that unforgiveness is less about the one who caused the wound and more about the prison it creates for the one who carries it. When the act of forgiveness takes place, genuine, heartfelt, and not merely intellectual, the body responds almost instantly. The stomach softens, digestion flows more naturally, and health begins to stabilize. In that moment, one realizes that forgiving is not about excusing what happened, but about reclaiming the flow of life within oneself. This brings us to another dimension of healing that transcends the physical and steps into the creative power of the mind. Visualization. The body is deeply impressionable, and the subconscious does not differentiate between what is vividly imagined and what is physically experienced. When one consistently projects mental images of wholeness, seeing oneself walking with vitality, breathing with ease, or feeling organs operate in perfect harmony, the body begins to align with that script. Visualization becomes a behind-the-scenes director, rewriting the play of health and guiding cells to embody the story that the mind insists on rehearsing. This is why athletes recover faster when they visualize their performance, why patients who see themselves healed improve outcomes, and why even medicine seems to act with greater strength when paired with mental imagery. The true impact of this practice is not limited to isolated cases, but represents a profound revelation. The imagination is not an accessory, it is an instrument. It can accelerate medical treatment, reduce recovery time, and transform despair into determination. When we understand that our inner images are blueprints, we stop leaving our healing journey to chance and begin to participate in its design. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic because visualization is not merely a personal tool. It is a bridge between the invisible and the tangible, a doorway through which transformation flows. If this resonates with you, write in the comments, "I see myself healed." When the idea of Christ as the inner physician emerges, it dissolves centuries of conditioning that made us believe healing always comes from outside. It is not to deny the value of medicine, technology, or the brilliance of doctors, but to uncover the hidden truth that no remedy can act without the silent cooperation of the life force within. That principle, often called Christ, is not confined to any single doctrine. It is the universal spark of order, renewal, and intelligence pulsing in every human being. When we become aware of this presence, something extraordinary happens. We stop approaching healing as beggars and begin to engage with it as participants. The inner physician responds not to fear but to recognition, not to despair but to faith, not to passivity but to the decision to align with life itself. This awareness leads us to a deeper reflection about the medicine of tomorrow. For too long, the path of science and the path of spirit walked in parallel lines, often suspicious of each other, sometimes even in conflict. Yet the journey of humanity seems to be steering toward a reconciliation, a new mindset where these two forces no longer exclude but complete one another. Imagine a hospital where medical professionals and spiritual mentors work side by side, not as rivals, but as allies. Doctors applying their knowledge with precision while ministers, or those trained in the care of the soul, cultivate the environment of thought, prayer, and love that magnifies the treatment's impact. In this vision, the patient is no longer just a body to be repaired, but a whole being whose story, emotions, and beliefs are as essential as their blood. Pressure and lab results. This integral healing does not belong to some distant future. It begins the moment we allow it in our mindset. The decisions we make daily, the thoughts we cultivate, the gratitude we practice, and the forgiveness we choose are already shaping the medicine we receive. It is a behind-the-scenes collaboration, where antibiotics or surgeries are supported by the quiet but potent influence of prayer, visualization, and affirmation. Transformation happens not by rejecting science, but by expanding it, infusing it with the awareness that healing is never purely mechanical, it is always spiritual at its core. Now, I want to go even deeper into this topic, because when we start to see healing as a union of love and intelligence, we realize that the future of medicine is not waiting to be invented, it is waiting to be remembered. If these words spoke to you, write in the comments, "Healing begins within." If you've walked with me all the way until now, it means these words resonated with something deep inside you. That's exactly why it makes sense to stay connected here. Subscribe so you don't lose the threads of these reflections that can shift not only your mindset, but the way you walk through life itself. And if you felt that spark, let me know you reached the end by writing in the comments, "I'm with you until the end." I'll be glad to see who truly traveled this whole journey with me. Leave a like too, as a quiet way of saying this message touched you, and let's keep building this space of clarity and strength together. There's a video right here that complements this topic. Click and continue with me over there. The journey only gets richer.